message. This is not a drill.
Figure that out. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm trying to figure out why there's so many of these events popping up, left and right, of these different things flying above our heads. I want to know if this is gonna be like this, like okay, we already know that the Space Force exists, but I'm wondering, like, is this gonna really like push the Space Force into our new military now? Because if you notice, like, it keeps coming up that there are things flying over us. Whether you say these things are from China, whatever the case may be, I don't know if they identify what this thing is. Let me see if I can pull something up. I don't know if they identified what was flying and where it came from, but here's an article right here. I'm gonna post it in the chat. Hello. Hey everybody. So link in the chat.
Now, do you think these are real things, or
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
It's so hard for me to believe China and our government.
I know. It's like, I don't know. And then I don't want to get to a point where, because you don't know, you don't care. Because that's like literally a lot of times their game plan is that sometimes they want to push you so much and put so much societal pressure on you to where you're trying to always figure out what's real, what's not. And then you get to a point where you just don't care. Like, you get desensitized. Like, and that's kind of like what we saw with like the George Floyd and his police killings. It gets to a point where people just like, okay, another day. Now we have like these random things that are flying over us. It's like, okay, whatever. It says here at this article I just posted in the chat, it says a U.S. military fighter jet shot down an unknown object flying off the coast of Alaska on Friday. The object was flying at about 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flights. It says it was the second time in a week U.S. officials have downed some type of flying object over the United States. On Saturday, fighter jets fired a missile into a suspected Chinese spy balloon off the coast of South Carolina. And we saw that. That was that balloon that was floating from Montana, and it was like going diagonally until it hit South Carolina, right? So they say that the guy says, we're going to remain vigilant about our airspace. The president takes obligations to protect our national security interests as paramount. This guy says fighter pilots visually examining the object. The president was briefed on the presence of the object Thursday, even after two fighter jets surveilled it. Okay, hold on, wait a minute. So they knew about this object Thursday evening. So that was yesterday, and they're just shooting it down today. Okay. The development came almost a week after the U.S. shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon, yada yada. Chinese insisted the flyover was an accident involving a civilian craft and threatened repercussions. Okay, so China was pretty much saying that that balloon that we saw last week was an accident. It was actually a civilian who created that balloon, but the United States was not allowed to shoot it down. It says that the balloon was a part of a large surveillance program that China has been conducting for several years, the Pentagon has said. China responded that it reserved the right to take further actions and criticize the United States. Okay. So there's not really no information right now on where this balloon is coming from. Or even if it is a balloon, it just says an unknown object. Now, from another source that I've seen, it says that the unknown object is actually like the size of a car. I just read that on Twitter, that the size of the object is literally like the size of a small vehicle. So that I think that's pretty huge. That's pretty huge. Anybody
to be flying and not be a plane? Yeah. It is.
Yeah, like a small car. Like, think about like a size like a Toyota. And this thing, they're not saying it's a balloon. So this is a little different than the last one. I'm gonna play the live press conference while we're doing that, because they're answering questions about this thing right now. if you guys can also share the space out, if you guys can ping some people in, let's spread the news. I'm gonna try to do more rooms where I keep up to date with daily news. In the Discord, that's what I do. I try to put new news stuff on. If you follow me on Twitter, you see me do that all the time as well. So despite our little cultural indifferences, I want to make sure that we keep up to date to what's going on, because a lot of times those cultural discussions are like distractions to the fact that weird shit like this is happening and it's becoming more common. And it's kind of funny because they coined that this year 2023 is supposed to be the year of the AI, right? So this is the year of AI. This is the year of full disclosure of artificial intelligence. So I think this is time where we have to put our thinking caps on, enough with the conspiracy theories, and we have to really start paying attention to this government and where they're going. So I'm gonna start playing the press conference that's live right now. Ping some people in here. Let's spread the word. All right, I'm going to start playing it right now. Hold on. Did it stop? Okay, let me go back. Let me get back. Here we go, right here. Hold up. Hold on. I'm trying to get to the right part.
High altitude surveillance balloon that was taken down off the coast of South.
Okay, can y'all hear that? Y'all heard that little clip?
Carolina on February 4.
Can y'all hear that?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go back. All right, so I'm gonna go back.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for your patience while we were delayed a little bit. I have a few things to talk about up top, and then we'll get right to your questions. So first of all, to add to information already provided earlier by the White House, at the direction of the President of the United States, fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command successfully took down a high-altitude airborne object off the northern coast of Alaska at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today within U.S. sovereign airspace over U.S. territorial water. On February 9, North American Aerospace Defense Command detected an object on ground radar and further investigated and identified the object using fighter aircraft. The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. U.S. Northern Command is beginning recovery operations now. U.S. Northern Command's Alaska Command coordinated the operation with assistance from the Alaska Air National Guard, Federal Aviation Administration, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have no further details about the object at this time, including any description of its capabilities, purpose, or origin. The object was about the size of a small car, so not similar in size or shape to the high-altitude surveillance balloon that was taken down off the coast of South Carolina on February 4. Separately, U.S. Northern Command continues their recovery operations in support of the recent takedown of the Chinese high-altitude surveillance balloon. Recovery teams have mapped the debris field and are in the process of searching for and identifying debris on the ocean floor. Debris that's been recovered so far is being loaded onto vessels, taken ashore, cataloged, and then moved onwards to labs for subsequent analysis. And while I won't go into specifics due to classification reasons, I can say that we have located a significant amount of debris so far that will prove helpful to our further understanding of this balloon and its surveillance capabilities. Of note, due to less than favorable sea states right now, teams will continue to conduct underwater survey and recovery as conditions permit. The department wants to thank our interagency partners from the U.S. Coast Guard, the FBI, and state and local authorities for their continuing assistance and partnership. In other news, and I think this is important that we remember, a lot of folks and people in Turkey and Syria right now are suffering. We want to again express our support for the people of Turkey and Syria as they respond to the deadly earthquakes that struck there earlier this week. In support of ongoing U.S. assistance efforts spearheaded by the U.S. Agency for International Development, U.S. European Command has positioned personnel, equipment, and a range of assets to aid the government of Turkey and its continued search and rescue efforts. This includes the U.S. Navy's George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group, repositioning to the Eastern Mediterranean Sea to provide logistics, medical, and rotary airlift support if required. Additionally, U.S. Army rotary wing aircraft began flying missions out of Incirlik Air Base in Turkey on February 7 to transport first responders to the most affected populations. And on February 8th, UH-60 Blackhawks transported injured civilians to a local medical facility. U.S. European Command has designated U.S. Naval Forces Europe and Africa as the lead component command overseeing the EUCOM humanitarian assistance and disaster relief efforts within Turkey. To aid in that coordination, U.S. Marine Corps Brigadier General Andrew Priddy, U.S. Naval Amphibious Forces Europe Commander and 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade Commanding General arrived in Turkey February 9 to lead military coordination efforts with U.S. agencies involved in the humanitarian aid and disaster relief efforts. We'll continue to provide you with updates as we receive them. EUCOM will be issuing a press release with further details. But again, we offer our thoughts and prayers to the people of Turkey and Syria during this tragic and difficult time. And finally, Secretary Austin welcomed Canadian Minister of National Defense Anand for a bilateral meeting here in the Pentagon today. The Secretary expressed his thanks and appreciation to Minister Anand for the cooperation rendered by Canada in tracking the PRC high-altitude surveillance balloon that violated the sovereignty of both of our countries. During the meeting, both leaders reaffirmed the close defense relationship between the United States and Canada, and a readout will be available later today on defense.gov. And with that, I will take your questions. We'll start with Associated Press, Tara Kopp.
Hi, thank you for doing this. A couple of questions on this latest shoot down. First, what type of U.S. fighter aircraft were used, and what type of munition did they fire? And do you already have Navy assets or Coast Guard assets involved in a recovery process? And then I have a few more.
Thanks, Tara. So the aircraft that took down the object was an F-22 flying out of Joint Base Elmendorf in Alaska. It employed an AIM-9X to take down the object. In terms of assets that are currently involved, in terms of recovery, we have HC-130, HH-60, and CH-47 aircraft participating in that recovery effort.
Okay. You mentioned there was a reasonable threat. Was there also a threat to potentially this object detecting some of our more sensitive radar capabilities that are based in Alaska? And then what hasn't been said is where this object has come from. Is there any indication that this was also a Chinese surveillance balloon object, whatever it is?
Yeah, so at this point, we don't know the origin of the object. Again, we will know more once we're able to potentially recover some of those materials. But the primary concern, again, was the potential hazard to civil flight. And so, again, we'll know more later. Thank you.
No perceived threat to any of the radar installations that we have based in Alaska?
Again, right now, we'll know more once we assess it. We'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Liz.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking my question. What made this threatening enough to shoot down? What is different about this object than the last object that was over Alaska? Because it was chosen not to shoot the last one down over Alaska.
Yeah, so the important thing to understand here is anytime we detect anything, we're going to, first of all, observe it and then make a decision and take appropriate action. So you have to look at each individual case on its own merits. In this particular case, given the fact that it was operating at an altitude that posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, the determination was made and the president gave the order to take it down.
Was there a specific threat, a specific civilian air traffic incident that could have happened?
Again, as you well know, civilian aircraft operate, at a variety of ranges up to 40 to 45,000 feet. So again, there was a reasonable concern that this could present a threat to or a potential hazard to civilian air traffic. So let me.
Question.
Yep.
Has Secretary Austin reached out to his Chinese counterpart or any other counterparts at all since this has been tracked?
Since this particular object, no. Let me go here and then I'll come over to one.
Things from the previous balloon have been recovered. What additional information you have now about the capabilities of that balloon?
Yeah, so we're continuing to assess that. Again, I'm not able to go into more detail other than in addition to learning a lot about the balloon and the capabilities that it has while it was over the continental United States. We have identified or located a significant amount of debris on the ocean floor that will be very beneficial to us learning more about it. But at this point in time, I'm not going to have more details.
Manufacturing label on these equipments or the balloons indicate that they're all manufactured in China, sourced from China.
Again, I'm not going to have details to provide it at this point in time.
Also say that 39 other countries have indicated they have seen balloons in their territories. Are you sharing those information from the Pentagon to these countries, or the capabilities, how you shot them down?
So in terms of what we're learning about these balloons, I know the State Department has talked to this in terms of our international outreach. Certainly, the Department of Defense plays a role in those relationships, and so we will continue to work with our allies and partners to share information along with our State Department colleagues. Let me go to Oren.
Two questions. First, did this object show any signs of maneuverability or propulsion? And then you and other Pentagon officials made a big deal about how much intelligence was gathered by letting the other one float across much of the United States, and yet you shot this one down before it entered the United States. Is that the Pentagon bowing to political pressure? Was there nothing to gain from this one?
Yeah, so again, we're going to judge each of these on its merits. No indication at this time that it was maneuverable, but again, we'll know more. And in terms of entering the United States, it did enter U.S. airspace, and we took it down.
Did you gain intelligence from this one as you did from the previous one?
We're going to recover what we can from this, and more to follow.
And was the decision to shoot it down before it entered too far into the U.S. airspace, the Pentagon bowing to political pressure from the Hill?
Look, again, we're going to judge each of these objects on its own merits. It entered into U.S. airspace on February 9th. We sent up aircraft to assess what it was. The decision was made that it posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic. The president gave the order to take it down, and we took it down. Thank you, Laura. And then I'll go to Dan.
Thanks. Sorry. Thanks for taking my question. So a couple questions. First of all, has anything like this happened before with an object this size, this shape, in this particular height for the 40,000 foot range? Has it happened before? And then second of all, can you say more about why you knew that last balloon or object was from China, whereas this one you don't know?
So in terms of this particular object, again, as I highlighted, we don't know where it's from. It posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, and so the determination was made to take it down. In terms of the other balloon, as I mentioned in our previous briefing, we have learned a lot about the Chinese surveillance high-altitude balloon program. We've gathered a lot of information over the last couple of years, and so we were able to, based on that information, detect at a very early stage. As it approached U.S. airspace, we had a good understanding of what it was. As I mentioned, we were able to monitor that closely, track it while it went over the continental United States, learn a lot about it, and take it down at the appropriate time.
So would you urge us to put this in a different bucket than that, or should we?
Yeah, I think I was pretty clear. This was traveling at about 40,000 feet, which posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, and the decision was made to take it down. So, Dan.
When the pilots approached it, and they determined, I understand, that it was not manned. How did they determine that? And at that point, wouldn't it be possible to at least describe what they were looking at? Did it resemble a balloon or an airplane or what?
Again, we'll know more and have more information once we've recovered this. I will give credit to our pilots that they are very capable in terms of looking at an object, assessing whether or not this had the potential to be manned. At that altitude, something that small, very, very unlikely that it was manned. And so, again, no indication that it was manned. Presented a potential reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, and we took it down.
What speed was it traveling at, by the way?
I don't have that information.
Just on the Chinese balloon, if we could go back, is it still, in the Pentagon's view, plausible or maybe even likely that it was not necessarily intentional that when that balloon turned and blew eastward, that it seemed to have not had some technical problem.
Yeah. So Dan, what I would tell you is based on the information that we have, it was being maneuvered and purposefully driven along its track. Again, recognizing that winds do play a role because of the maneuverability of the balloon. It's our assessment that this was a purposeful mission. In terms of the Chinese motivations, again, I'd have to refer you back to China to talk about that. Ma'am, and then come to Nancy.
Thank you. Sorry, got it. We emailed you.
All right, I'm gonna pause it for right now. I'm reading the chat. What Lisa's saying. Yeah, so basically, if you guys are paying attention to what they're saying, this was not a balloon, not at all. And the stage is open if you guys want to come up and discuss anything. This was not a weather balloon. This is not a balloon. This is not what we saw last week, right? There is no origins as of yet that they are releasing where it came from. So they're saying they don't know where it came from. The size of it is at least the size of a car. So that would be probably like a size of like a compact car, like a Toyota, a little Hyundai or something, right? Which is very small compared to an airplane, right? So it's a very tiny particular object. Well, small. I don't want to say tiny, but small object that is hovering or flying over Alaska, right? At a high altitude that will be in the way of civilian airplanes in this particular latitude, aptitude, right? So they're not releasing what it's used for. They're not releasing what it would have, what capabilities it was going to do, but they are saying it was targeted, meaning that the location that it was in was on purpose. Now, I am going to see if I can get the exact location because they're not giving us the exact location in Alaska. But if you guys remember the weather balloons, so the balloons that were last week with China, if you guys remember, those balloons were hovering over a base. Matter of fact, it went over a couple of Air Force bases, okay? One of the bases it was hovering over, if you guys remember, it was like a doomsday base in Montana. This Montana doomsday base, it says like enough nuclear warfare to pretty much annihilate the planet. So I'm going to go to Montana doomsday. I'm going to put the link in the chat if you guys forgot. Doomsday base. Okay. Here it is. I'm going to post a link in the chat so you guys can read this article. So this particular doomsday base, like I said, this is where the United States keeps a lot of their nuclear warfare. And it just so happened that this civilian, as they say, Chinese balloon was literally hovering over it in Montana, right? Middle of Montana now. Think about how crazy that is, because Montana is not a place that people commonly go. It's not a place that people commonly are. But this balloon is just hovering until it made its way down in South Carolina, which I think is very ironic too, because I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with like South Carolina, even Georgia region. Like I used to live in that particular region, that South Carolina Georgia border. And one of the major things in that area is the nuclear plants we have over there. We have it's called Savannah Riverside, and we have another plant over there. And I remember like years ago, like someone had told me like if there ever was like a threat to the southeast, watch those nuclear plants around these black communities. Watch those plants. You know. Okay, Miss Lisa, you said the size of a car can be certain Scott drones that can be lifted and remotely controlled. Yeah, it does feel like whatever this is, somebody somewhere is controlling it, probably with a remote control. Right? It doesn't have anybody in it. It's not a satellite. And even the satellites use the balloon technology to even hover. right? To be able to be that high in the sky. So whatever this is not the same type of object. Lisa in the chat says, anyways, this is not looking good at all at this point since this was controlled. No excuses for whoever sent it and can be very, very dangerous move. The point of war declaration, not good at all. I have to agree with you, Lisa. I definitely think that, and I know you're actually currently serving. Me, myself, I'm a veteran. I have to say, from what it looks like, this is a test to see how we're going to respond, right? And however we respond it could lead us into a next world war, right? I don't really I'm kind of lost for words, you know. Anybody? I'm gonna see if I can invite some people on stage because I want to hear what you guys think. I don't want to just be the only one, you know, giving my thoughts. But I'm a little lost for words because Okay, I posted it. Okay, let's get real conspiratorial. You know, sometimes I like to get a little conspiratorial. I posted in a chat the Space Force. Now, the United States military, we have now a Space Force, right? You can join, you can have different jobs. And that was established underneath Trump, I believe, right? And from what I hear is that it was established because there could be a threat of air attacks, right? These air attacks could be happening, and we need to have a stronger military, not just an air force, but a stronger military that can even reach at higher altitudes than even our air force, right? So we have this Space Force going on now. Let's get into some conspiratorial type things real quick. Could these be aliens? Could this be a hologram? Right? Is it even real? Could this be coming from another atmosphere? And how long? If you guys just heard that in the press conference, he said that this is not the first object. In fact, a couple weeks ago, there was another object that was flying over Alaska, but they didn't shoot that down, which he never explained why they didn't shoot it down. And I would want to know an answer to that. He wouldn't answer that question to the reporter. Why didn't they shoot the first one down weeks ago, but now the second one, like the reporter asked, why did you choose to shoot this one down then? What was the difference between this one and the one last week? Or did you just shoot it down because of pressure from the media and the public because of what just happened with China last week, right? I think that was like a really good question that the reporter asked, because it's like, okay, well, if you guys know that these things are flying in the atmosphere, you're not making no noise about it, but you only made a noise about this China one because why? And now that people are on high alert of these things that are flying over their head, is this the only reason why you're really shooting these things down? You know? Hey, Eagle Hawk, you want to give your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cents on what's going on?
How you feeling today?
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm with you. I'm kind of okay. So I'll start with this. So, talking about signals, and the first thing that came to me is signal detection, right? So in electronic warfare, and so for people who prior service, people are familiar with let's see. No, there's no foreigners in the audience. Okay, so people are familiar with Fort Huachuca, U.S. Army. It's also training grounds for electronic surveillance, intelligence, signals, warfare. So like the first balloon, right, has all of these different antennas on it, listening devices. To me, that signals intelligence. They're probing. So why over Montana? And that struck me because I was like, we have, some of our nuclear silos in Montana. So we also have listening posts in Alaska as well. Air Force. I'm not going to speak on what they do, but Anchorage is very important to the U.S. Air Force in terms of what they do, in terms of signals intelligence, reconnaissance, so forth and so on. So I just found that very interesting, right? 3 that we know of, that we know of. So one that somehow reached Colombia, then went over to Costa Rica. Then we had the one that came down from Montana. And I'm sure that we discovered it at some point, over Canada. And then now we have another one, right? A third one And so it's obviously coming from the west somewhere. So, and there's not too much discrepancy as to where it could be coming from, west of Alaska. So I just find that very interesting. It's definitely provocative. It's definitely in the category of probing analysis, and signals detection, which is, I mean, they could do it from a satellite, they could do it through cyber warfare, but to do it so overtly, right? With this low tech, it's very blatant. It's very provocative.
So, being that they have not given origin to this particular object that was flying over Alaska today, do you think that it has Chinese origins as well?
It's possible, So, because when I had this conversation last week, and somebody said, well, they wouldn't do that. And so I'm unsure, but it looks to be that. And I was historically pointing out the fact that this was done before, in World War II. The Japanese flew fire balloons, all the way from Japan, and they floated over the coast, and they would hit the West Coast, and land and start fires. And that was a common occurrence during World War II. So people have done this before in various types of, provocative moves, sent from military. So it is possible. But regardless, it's a very provocative move, because, I'll just leave it at that.
So. Okay. And I'll ask you, do you think that this could be grounds for us having to retaliate, which could lead us into the next World War?
Well, I definitely think it's an escalation, and so from what I hear on the back ends, okay, so a couple of years ago, I was sharing with you when I was getting into IT on the civilian end, there are companies that monitor this stuff. I'm here in DC, for people who don't know. There are civilian defense contractors here, in the area, across the river, in Arlington, that monitor this stuff daily. And people would be surprised, if you saw on the back end how much we are hit on a daily basis in terms of electronic warfare, and where these signals come from. So it's definitely an escalation. I remember Bush Jr. in 2004. I remember when our White House, webpage was hacked, right? We found out it was a little kid in Amsterdam who was 16 years old. But then to a greater extent with China, I remember when our DOD and Pentagon was hacked, and they stole the stealth plane technology. They stole a lot of stuff. So we're definitely at that aspect, of Cold War hostilities for sure. At least 20 years with China in terms of cyber warfare.
Well, let me reset the room. We are talking about just now, I believe it was at 1:40, or I might have the time wrong, estimating around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our military got the orders from Biden to shoot down yet another object over Alaska this time. This object was not a balloon. It was not what we have seen with China last week. This was actually, they have not really released a shape of this particular object, but they say it's about the size of a car. Okay. There have not specified if it had any kind of satellites on it or what was possibly could have been its mission. But whatever it was or wherever it came from, it was targeted to be in this particular region of Alaska. Now, it's not the first time that something of this particular stature has been flying over Alaska. In fact, just in the press conference where we were listening, they actually admitted that a couple weeks ago there was another object flying over Alaska, but they did not shoot this one down. This particular object today was flying at an altitude that was very high for such a small object. So being that it was so small and it's flying so high, they said this could pose a threat because the altitude that it was flying at is pretty much the altitude where commercial airplanes and civilian traffic flies at. So it could cause a problem when these flights are at this particular level. So, okay, Lisa actually says we are in DEFCON 3. Now, let me go back. Let's be conspiratorial. I like this. Now, last night, we had a space. We were in here rocking all night. we were talking about realism, right? You guys remember that? And the realism and how they believe in UFOs, they believe in aliens, and they believe that aliens they're the master race that created humans, right? Okay. And the reason why it sparked such a conversation was because a famous rapper by the name of Kanye West posted the symbol of realism, right? Well, not only did he do that, he made a tweet before he even did all that got him in hot water with the small hats. He talked about DEFCON 3. Now, in the context of how he said it, you know, they were saying that he was going to go DEFCON 3 on small hats, right? That's what they say. But I always pay attention to the keywords that people use, right? I eliminate all the other gibberish around it, and I zone in on key things that they do. That's just a habit I have, right? So I zoned in on the fact DEFCON 3. What's DEFCON 3? Let's talk about DEFCONs and what are they? And why it is relevant to some of our conversations last night. All right. So I'm going to read out the different DEFCONs that we have and how it pretty much measures our defense readiness in case we had to, you know, we had to get shit popping. Okay. All right. 1 second. I'm going to put this link in the chat. And I think it's very important that as civilians, and even for those of us that are prior service, and even those of us that are in the service don't even know what DEFCON is. I'll keep it real. Okay. So don't think that everybody who's in the service be really knowing. Sometimes a lot of times people just come for a check, go home. So they're not really aware of, you know, things that they're part of. So I'm going to read the different DEFCONs quickly. And then we're going to get into which DEFCON that we're in. Now, remember, just a few months ago, Kanye made this real controversial tweet. And he said DEFCON 3 in it. All right. So DEFCON 5, this is peacetime, normal. The default state of readiness for the United States military. DEFCON 5, it represents a normal readiness, a posture which can be sustained indefinitely, which represents an optimum balance between requirements of readiness, routine training, and equipping of forces for their primary mission. DEFCON 4 describes the everyday operating procedures for fighting units. At DEFCON 4, the United States military complex ramps up intelligence, gathering and shores up security. DEFCON 4 represents a readiness posture requiring increased intelligence, watch, and a continual analysis of political/military situation in the area of intention, right? It says that most forces are at either DEFCON 4 or DEFCON 5, okay? DEFCON 3. This is 2 steps from war. DEFCON 3 generally is seen as a standby level of alert, and it's the highest level of alert during peacetime. DEFCON 3 represents a readiness posture that requires certain portions of assigned forces to assume an increased readiness posture above of normal readiness. DEFCON 3 has an exercise term called roundhouse. At the least tense points during the Cuban Missile Crisis, various parts of the United States military at DEFCON 3. Over a decade ago, 1973, President Richard Nixon put the United States military on DEFCON 3 during the Yom Kippur War. Was Moscow and was reportedly preparing to launch an attack in the Middle East. Okay? DEFCON 2. DEFCONs 2 were 1 step from nuclear war, and it's implemented when an enemy attack is expected. Troops are poised for combat at this time. DEFCON 2 represents a readiness posture requiring further increase in military force readiness, which is less than maximum readiness. Certain military deployments and selected civil actions may be necessary. During this stage, the U.S. will have subs at sea and bombers waiting on runways. Part of the United States military were at DEFCON 3 at the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. The closest the world ever came to nuclear war. Okay? DEFCON 1. The most urgent alert. DEFCON 1 represents the highest level of readiness for nuclear war. DEFCON 1 will be reserved for when an attack is perceived as imminent or already underway, when the nation's forces are engaged in full-on war mode. DEFCON 1 represents a maximum readiness posture requiring the highest state of preparedness to execute war plans. The United States has never been at DEFCON 1, at least not at the public's knowledge since the system began. Okay? What is the highest level that we've ever reached? The United States elevated the Strategic Air Command to DEFCON 2 during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. It was the highest level of DEFCON that we have reached by the United military so far. So with that being said, right? DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2, DEFCON 3, DEFCON 4. Where are we at now? Let's see where we at now. All right. So as of December 2022, I'm going to post this in the chat. All right. So right now in the chat, I posted a link. It says that as of December 2022, we are at DEFCON 3. All right. Now, I want you to remember what Kanye put out there. Because I'm telling you, a lot of these people, they speak in code. And what the media does, it harps in on the gibberish around what the person is saying to make it so such a problem. So it dulls down people's antennas to say, what does he even mean by DEFCON, right? But mind you, he made that tweet way back in like October. I remember like October, September-ish, right? And as of December, we were at DEFCON 3, whether you know it or not, meaning that we are preparing for some type of attack, right? I'm going to read DEFCON 3 one more time for those who are new in the room. We're talking about the possibility of, could we be walking into nuclear warfare? An object flying over Alaska was just shot down by the Pentagon, okay, on the behest of the orders of Biden. This was not a Chinese balloon. It was not a balloon of any sort, but nonetheless, it was as like the size of a car. Compare that to an airplane, that's pretty small. Think about that. You put a Toyota compact car next to an airplane, that's pretty small, right? So this particular object, though, is flying at the same altitude as an airplane, though. Okay? This little object, compared to an airplane, is flying at the same altitude. It was shot down today, roughly around 1:30 to 1:40-ish Eastern Standard Time. All right? So I'm going to read one more time what is DEFCON 3. And I'm going to read from this article. It says the United States is currently reported to be at DEFCON 3 due to the situation and conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Okay? Hold on. DEFCON 3, it means that certain units are in a state of preparedness for immediate response and deployment if necessary. So I'm going to mute my mic. Let me welcome Bobby Wright. Welcome to the stage, Bobby Wright. I'm going to mute my mic. I want to hear what y'all think about what DEFCON level are we in now. Do you guys think we're still at 3? Do you guys think that we have escalated to 2? Being that we have more and more of these objects flying over us? What y'all think? All right, so I'm going to chat. All right, so Lisa said that DEFCON 3, yeah, high readiness, armed forces ready to deploy in 6 hours. Right. Okay, somebody in the chat, Evans, he says, I hope you're wrong about going to DEFCON 2. Yeah, I hope so too, right? Nobody wants to be in DEFCON 2. But if you guys are, how many of you are familiar with the doomsday clock? And I want you to peep the verbiage And I want you to peep the link at the top. I already have pasted. I'm going to post a chat. I said a chat. A link in the chat. The doomsday clock. And for those who are not familiar with the doomsday clock, it's supposed to measure when we will be closer and closer to nuclear warfare. All right. So link in the chat. All right. I'll give y'all a second to check that out. The doomsday clock, and how I believe the last time I checked, we are about 90 seconds from nuclear warfare based upon this clock. Okay?
Hey, what's up, folks?
How you doing?
I thought we were about a tenth of a second off of midnight.
Are we? Is it updated? That close now?
Yeah, we got a whole lot closer. They just released it. Didn't they do a new release this year or towards the end of last year, I believe?
Let me check.
I gotta go look. I just seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go.
Okay, yeah, I'll check. Matter of fact, I'm looking at it right now. And there's two doomsday clocks. So there's one where they're measuring the time of nuclear warfare, when we're going to get close to it. And then there's one that I think is, what's his name? Was it Bezos? I think it's just one of these people. We just talked about it last night. He's creating a clock that's inside the earth that's supposed to last for 10,000 years, right? Okay, so let me post this link. All right, 3 days ago, it was updated. The doomsday clock shows the world is closer to a catastrophe more than ever. So I'm going to post this link in the chat. I want to thank you all for pulling up. If you guys can, please ping people in here. I think that more people need to be informed on what's going on with the United States. I think many of you, like myself, know that we are not living in the same system we grew up in. Or maybe we are. We just always been oblivious, right? But we're definitely reaching in a very interesting and precedented time, especially as we grow closer to 2024 election, and we grow closer to this World Economic Forum having this this so-called reset, right? So as time continues to tick on, we are definitely need to start paying attention, put aside a lot of our differences to figure out how you will survive some of these catastrophes that are happening. In various places like Mississippi, they are ramping up police force. I actually put that up in the Discord. I'll repost the Discord link. Let me post the Discord link again. If you join our Discord, I put a lot of current news and resources in there. And you'll see that places like Atlanta, they're about to build an industrialized police complex called Cop City. Mississippi just ruled, hold on, let me find that link. They just voted to create a separate court system and expand police force within the city of Jackson. Okay, so you're starting to see how these police forces are, ramping up as we're getting closer and closer to these interesting times. Okay. Also in the Discord, you'll see links in the current news section where there's these weird, mysterious clouds hovering over various cities. So like there's one in Portland. Let me go ahead and post this tweet in the chat so you guys can see this as well if you're not in the Discord. Oh. You'll see that this is a big old black cloud. And if you guys do not know, there was a major, major earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria. And roughly 20,000 people have died. Okay? Like it literally just hit on Monday. All right. So from
now it's 20K.
Yeah. Yes. Let me post a link in the chat. Yes. As of 3 hours ago, 20,000 people. I remember when it was just saying 700. Lisa, she says she has 26,000. Yeah, the number's up there. Yeah.
Hey, Shan, have you seen the videos of the actual event that took place where prior to the earthquake, there were sounds of explosions going across that region as if nuclear bombs went off? People were describing, because I seen videos, surveillance videos out there that showed like mushroom clouds occurring out of huge like engulfed flames right before that earthquake transpired.
No, I did not hear about that. No. So you're saying that there was some sort of loud booms that people were hearing, and all of a sudden this earthquake just comes out the blue.
Yes, correct. And with those loud booms came engulfed flames that looked like mushroom clouds. That's why people were saying that they were attacked. We were in the rabbit hole saying, damn, that was probably HARP that attacked them. And then it comes out on Twitter that people out in Turkey were saying that, there's a possibility that was a, weather modification storm. They were attacked by HARP. But then I'm saying to myself, what else could cause birds to feel as if they're disconnected from the earth, for example, right? Besides like signals and stuff like that, right? Because normally with earthquakes or volcanoes, eruptions, you'll see the animals get out of there fast. Birds will fly away, so on and so on. And in these videos, the birds were flying in complete confusion. They weren't flying away or nothing. They were just flying up, and then you could see they were flying like in airy patterns. They didn't know what to do. So they went back and landed on trees and poles. But then, the earthquake and everything happened, which radioactive frequencies in the air will cause them to act in such manners as well. So there's certain things that just threw me off. I don't really think that was an earthquake that transpired. There was something that led to those earthquakes happening the way they did.
Oh, I definitely agree. I believe that if I was to really, should I go that deep? Oh, wait. But I definitely believe that because we're walking into a new reset, I want to share a speech that Biden gave last year. And it's in the Discord. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Soki. You go ahead while I find the speech. Welcome to the stage, Soki Empress.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I just got in the room and everything. Pro, what's up, brother? Always good to be in a room with you.
Peace, bro.
Question, did anyone mention about the last CERN test we just had a couple months ago?
I did a whole room on that the other day, bro. Yep.
Because I believe a lot of the things that we're going to see happen that we might think is natural cause and stuff like that. I think a lot of people are not really looking into that last experiment we just did with CERN when we turned it on. I think it was, July 5th?
Right.
July 7th, and they cracked a huge gash into the Earth's electromagnetic field, which left it open for a little over 14 hours. Does anybody know that? That's what happened. Those solar flares we were getting last year, all those solar flares, these solar flares left and right, it wasn't because of the sun was acting up. CERN literally cracked a hole into the atmosphere, the Earth's electromagnetic field, and left it open for over 14 hours. That's what happened last year. The same day, July 8th last year, South Dakota's Hadron Collider made some discoveries, okay? Not just CERN. The Hadron Collider in South Dakota is called the Lux Zeppelin. Like Led Zeppelin's Staircase to Heaven, that song, right? It's funny, right? So all